In Sector 509, some dirty kids are running around back and forth. One of them stands up and notices that the golem is coming. The kid walks up and tells the golem he'll trade this lantern for food. Nobody knows where that golem came from or who owns it. But what matters is that if you hand it trash, usually it gives you food in return. This time, though, after staring at the boy, the golem just keeps walking. The kid starts yelling, demanding to know why today it won't take the lantern when yesterday it did. As you can tell, it's not always guaranteed that the golem will give you food, depending on what you hand over. The kid keeps cursing, but his friend warns him to be careful. Some golems might fight back and actually kill people. Meanwhile, there's this kid with white hair full of swagger who's like 99.9% sure to be the protagonist. He jumps forward, gets in front of the golem, and hands over a whole bag stuffed with lanterns, screws, and other random junk. The golem stares for a moment, grabs the bag, consumes everything, and while the rest of the survivors are mad, still wondering where the hell this kid keeps finding so much stuff. The golem starts spitting out a bunch of drinks, canned food, even hamburgers. The kids complain that it doesn't make sense. How's he always managed to score so much? Seeing that he's stacked with enough food for about 3 days, one of them suggests that the guy must be clever and maybe they should just take it from him. But another quickly shuts him down, saying, no way. They're not messing with the coast of 17th Street. AIM then cuts to Sector 50, where the protagonist is walking while someone tails him. He notices it's 7 people, stops, and tells them to show themselves, already asking how long they plan on following him. For an apocalyptic world, this kid's pretty well fed, and one of them says Ray's senses, as always, are sharp. But he just turns around and warns Ron that he already made it clear last time. If they show up in front of him again, nobody's walking away. Ron never learned the rule about not messing with a white-haired character. He's itching for a fight and tells the kid to drop his backpack, saying that if he obeys, he'll walk away just fine. But Ree answers that he knows he's lying. The story shifts to a legend the kids in that place tell, the ghost of 17th Street, a boy with no expression who walks silently. Anyone who stared into his eyes would have their lies exposed. Ron loses it and goes in for a punch, yelling that Ray has always been an arrogant kid. Now it's time he learned to never act that way again. But Ray dodges with ease, taps his foot lightly, grabs the thing near him, and slams a hit into the guy's stomach. The first victim drops to the ground while the rest try to muster up some courage and charge, shouting to kill him. One of them swings, but Ray ducks and smashes an elbow straight into his mouth. The poor guy spits out what looks like 5 layers of blood. Before his buddy can react, Ray already kicks the other in the face. He glares to the side, and the whole street erupts and screams. A while later, Ray says he already made it clear that bringing more people wouldn't help at all. He steps closer to Ron, who's desperate, shouting that Ray is a monster and ordering him not to come near. But Ray reminds him that he'd already said he wouldn't be able to walk anymore after pulling something like this. At that moment, Ron whips out a little knife, warning Ray to stay back or he'll die. Seeing that, Ray thinks maybe being called a monster isn't so far off. When he was around 10 years old, he realized he was different from everyone else. With his knee cut open, people asked why he wasn't crying. Honestly, I don't think I'd cry from that either. Maybe I'm a little genius too. Another kid asked why he wasn't angry at the boy who had beaten up their friend. The protagonist didn't understand why he should feel anger. Then when that friend ended up dead and he still didn't care, well, that's when things really looked peculiar. From then on, the other kids started seeing him as strange and kept their distance. That's when he realized he didn't feel what people called emotions. He didn't know if that was wrong, but he wanted to be like everyone else. He wondered if one day he never learned what emotions really were. 6 years passed since then, and he still didn't feel anything. But strangely, he knew how to read other people's emotions. He tells Ron that not using any kind of blade is an unspoken rule here. So either Ron had brought it from the start because he planned to attack, or he was lying. Ron insists he found it in the trash earlier, but Ree can clearly see that's a lie. Through the energy concentrated in his chest, Ree saw things nobody else could. Certain emotions carried a color of mana. Anger and love were red mana. Apathy was blue. Excitement and joy shone yellow. There are countless colors, and his world is overflowing with them all. Ron screams at him not to come closer, or he'll really die. But seeing the heavy concentration of black, Ray knows the guy is drowning in fear. He keeps walking forward while Ron, trembling, orders him to stay put, backing up until he slams into a wall. That's when the protagonist declares that a liar like him deserves punishment. A promising protagonist already farming aura in the very first chapter. Looks like the kid got his beating, and now Ray's heading back under the bridge. He remembers Pale, that greeny boy who leads the bridge kids. Everyone rushes to him, thrilled, calling out that Big Brother Ray has returned. Turns out he's even got some friends. I really thought he was just another lonely kid. They squeeze together in a cramped half-square meter hideout. and he tells everyone to put in the middle whatever they managed to gather today. The other kids, who aren't the main characters, poor things, barely brought anything at all. And Pale has no idea how he's supposed to split that up between 7 people. But just like any protagonist in an apocalyptic story, our boy's got that stacked inventory. Everyone's excited, saying for sure he must have scored a lot again from the golem. Truth is, nobody knows that what the golem really wants are items with mana residue. And if you can't see it, it's hard to get it right. So Pale says they can share, and thanks to Ree, no one's going hungry tonight. Man, I hope this guy's decent. Don't betray our protagonist and leave him cold, emotionless, wanting to kill you. Although Ray can see feelings, right? If Pale was a traitor, he'd notice. The kids are all happily eating while Ray heads back toward the bridge, thinking there's never enough for everyone. Maybe he should hit the warehouse. He feels it's his duty to support the group because he owes them his life. A year ago, he was dozing off in the snow when these kids found him and dragged him out. The boy was so depressed he figured dying there was fine. But the youngest one among them wouldn't accept that and insisted on helping him. The only principle Ray carries in life is that debts must be paid, whether as a favor or even as vengeance. That's when Pale shows up and says Ree needs to take a share too. Ray just says he's fine, not hungry. But then his stomach growls, giving him away. His friend immediately breaks a bar in half and hands it over. Today, black rain is falling. They say it happens when certain people burn through massive amounts of magic. They're in Sector 50, and the word is that high-level mages live down in the lower sectors. Pale insists this golem must be something sent by one of them. The protagonist figures it's just some machine, but Pale is sure it's magic keeping the thing walking. Oddly, he's emotional about it. I don't know why, but Ree agrees. That's because he can actually see that wherever the golem goes, it absorbs mana around it. The mana swirls at its core and releases black smoke. There's black smoke, then there's black rain. He isn't sure if they're really connected, but right now, there's something more important. He gets up saying he's heading out. His friend starts to warn him not to go out into the black rain, but the protagonist ignores it and runs off. When it rains, the streets are always empty because people believe a single drop of black rain can make you sick. But Ray can generate this aura around himself, making it a lot easier to work when there's no one else outside. On 18th Street sits Hector Manco's warehouse. Inside, guys are playing poker, bragging about betting it all, while Ray listens from outside. They always do this when it rains. And now it's their turn. Inside the warehouse, mana of countless types fills the air. Ray draws a red one and manages to spark a flame in his hand. He doesn't really know why, but this was the hardest color to control. It makes him wonder if by truly understanding the emotion tied to that mana, he could create a stronger fire. But then a knife comes flying and he barely dodges it. He hides immediately. Someone sneers that the little rat is here to steal their rations again. And worst of all, these guys are armed and even wearing mag vision goggles. Ray knows with 3 against 1, all of them tracking his position, he's screwed. He definitely didn't expect those bastards to have night vision. They throw 3 more knives, and Ray gives them a hard glare, then slips down the corridor, dodging everyone. The guy can't believe it, but mutters that the kid's an idiot for charging straight at him right before Ray plants a punch square into his jaw. The other 2 can't figure out how they're being seen in the dark. But of course, Ray is not looking at them. He's reading their emotions. One of them was overflowing with rage, the other with surprise. The guy swings his arm up and hurls another knife. But the mana vessel doesn't just show emotion, also lets Ray see where the next move is headed. He dodges, leaps, and lands a kick straight to the other's neck. The guy sputters that it's impossible, but Ray steps in, slams a punch into his stomach, and tells him it's not. With that, all 3 men are knocked out cold. But then another barges in, kicking the door open, saying he had to come see what the hell all that noise was. This one's an executive of the warehouse, whom is Humphrey, who says all his brothers have fallen. So now we'll have to deal with this little rat. The bastard is just as intimidating as the rumors said. For Ray, the plan now is simple. Get out of here. He charges, lands a punch to the chest, but the man doesn't budge a single inch. In an instant, Humphrey counters with a heavy swing, forcing Ray to dodge, barely managing to step back. At least he tested him. He realizes the guy is fast, and he retreats. Humphrey actually praises him, while Ree knows this opponent is on a completely different level. Humphrey comes again with another punch, and Ree dodges sideways. But no matter how much he can slip away, instinct tells him there's no way to fight this guy Heaton. That's why he crouches low, sidesteps, plots a weak point, focuses fire mana in his hand, and slams a palm strike to the chest. Humphrey is shoved back, and by the time he opens his eyes, the boy has vanished. But the entire sector is screaming that the kid was just there, so he couldn't have gotten far. And they're right. He's crouched behind a shack, just like me camping in Call of Duty. Just as they're about to close in, someone yells or something near the entrance. They all turn, and Reyes slips the other way. Robbing Hector's infamous warehouse was insane, and he knows if they catch him, they'll kill him. He's not afraid of death. The problem is if he disappears, where are those kids going to get food? He wouldn't be able to pay back the debt he owes. Then another comes up behind saying he's found him, forcing Rey to run again. Eventually, he slams into a dead end. The men order the kid to stop trying to escape and just hand over everything he stole or he'll leave with a hole in his stomach. Realizing Humphrey isn't there, Rey focuses mana into his arm, knowing he can handle these ones. The first rushes in, but Rey steps aside, pushes his arm away, and cracks him in the jaw. At that same moment, another charges with a knife, but Rey is already setting fire to the man's arm. And right then, Dan, the kid pulls in lightning, just like Killua, and blasts it out like Sasek's Chidori, right into the guy's mouth. Holy hell, this boy really has every element, doesn't he? But even so, he admits he's screwed. There are way more enemies than the mana he's got. He can't use it endlessly, so he'll have to disappear from here. Looks like he ditches the dump while the men run past. As the footsteps fade away, he decides it's best to spend the night there, so they don't follow him back to his hideout. He enjoys a surprisingly nice sleep on a comfy bed, and the next morning's sunlight wakes him. He steps out saying there's nobody around, when suddenly someone shouts that they found him. Turning to the side is a man with a knife, saying he knew the kid would show up again. Rey sees that this guy is burning with fury. But wait, is our boy still not recovered? One whole night's rest, and he hasn't bounced back. How the hell is he supposed to handle this? Rey pulls out his little knife too, and the guy grins, saying it's going to be a true duel of blades, a fight between real men. He charges, declaring that since it's come to this, he doesn't need to hold back. He can kill the boy outright. But Rey, as always, dodges with ease by reading the flow of mana. And when the guy glances to the side, trying to slash at him, Rey slips back once again. The problem is that sudden dodge throws him off balance, and now the man says goodbye to the kid, stabbing straight for his eye, but then a gunshot echoes through the junkyard. The man bleeds out and drops dead. A guy holding a pistol tells Rey that was pretty dangerous. He lights a cigarette and asks why Rey is causing trouble so early in the morning. This is Niles, the boss of 17th Street, the one with the American magic. He steps closer, and Rey immediately asks if someone called for him. Normally, he wouldn't even be awake at this hour. Niles says, yeah, he heard Hector's guys are making a mess. Then he notices Rey's coat and asks what that is. Did he take it from the warehouse? Bold move for a kid. Rey thanks him, but Niles quickly snaps that it wasn't a compliment. For Rey, people like Niles were the hardest to deal with. His emotions were so flat and monotone, it was nearly impossible to read what he was really thinking or how he might act. Miles warns that if Rey keeps this up, he's going to get himself killed. He can't just go around attacking everyone. Rey answers that it doesn't matter. It's either that or starving to death. Miles then says he's already paid his debt for saving Rey, and Rey replies that he already paid him back for that, too. We see what he means. A year ago, Rey pulled Niles unconscious out of the river. Apparently, Niles had been an executive in Sector 46, but was betrayed and executed. Rey doesn't believe he lied about it. In return, Niles taught him how to fight. Now Rey asks about that organization he once mentioned. He wants to join Niles. Rey's plan is to do it to protect the children. But suddenly Niles leans against the wall, cigarette burning low, and says he knows Rey can use magic. That makes the boy suspicious. So this was supposed to be a secret. Niles figures it all makes sense now. While Rey himself wants to know more about magic, he really doesn't understand how it works. Niles explains that what he knows comes from a mage in his old organization. The guy used to say mana is in the air, and he focused it to use power, but very few people can even sense it. Rey asks if the mage ever said anything about colors of mana, but Niles says no. He couldn't see it. To him, it was more like a feeling. That's when Rey realizes he's the only one who can actually see mana in the air. Niles suddenly steps in close, asking if Rey's looking to get hit. He swings, but the boy dodges again. A little later, Niles stands calmly at his side, waiting for his answer. Rey still wants him, but Niles just says no. Rey doesn't understand, but it seems Niles doesn't want the kid stuck in this place. Because the closer you move toward the lower-numbered sectors, the better life gets. To him, it'd be a waste for a child like Rey to stay here, making allies and growing stronger in such a dump. Niles tells him to leave Sector 50. If he wants, he can get him a car, but Rey refuses. He's taking care of the kids here. Niles then says not to worry. He was planning to start an orphanage anyway to take care of troublemakers like Rey around this place. Once more, Rey tries to read his emotions, but they're so faint, it's impossible to tell if he's lying or not. Still, at least Niles was someone who always kept his word. Then the protagonist mentions it looked like Hector was preparing for war. He'd seen countless trucks full of weapons rolling into the sector. Niall says he already knows. In these parts, using weapons of any kind is basically a declaration of war. And the worst part is Niall's crew is one of the few that charges a low tax, which means if others take over, survival is going to get a lot harder for everyone. Niles tells our protagonist to stop thinking of him as some old gang boss, but the boy shoots back that he definitely is. Niles swings a punch, but Ray dodges. At that exact moment, a car pulls up and someone inside tells the boss they need to go. Sliding into the car, Niles warns Ray that this place is about to turn into a war zone, so he better hide. He tosses something his way, and when Ree looks, it seems to be some kind of medicine. Ray just mutters for him to clean out his ears. The car drives off, leaving Ray standing there, not really understanding much. We cut to 17th Street, Central Square. The protagonist approaches a boy who lights up, asking why he didn't come back yesterday, and why he looks so beat up. Ray says it's nothing, just that he's carrying too much. He notices how amazing it is that a single person can feel so many emotions all at once. He hands over some cans and tells the kid to get back to the tent since Pale will show up soon. Once the boy leaves, Ree asks if she told Joe's Fine anything. The blind woman, Viola, the storyteller of this street, says she was just telling the boy about rainbows. Ray tells her to stop with that talk, otherwise they won't get used to surviving on the streets if they're dreaming about things like that. He also notices that Viola is the only person he's ever seen with purple mana. He warns her it's better to move somewhere else because a war is about to break out here and walks away while she thinks to herself that he truly was a kind child. The next morning, he knocks on a door announcing that the delivery has arrived. A man answers asking why it's Ray instead of Ron. Ray thinks to himself about that poor guy who had both legs broken. He tells the man, "You should evacuate. He won't have any customers once the war starts." But the man just says he doesn't have anywhere else to go. The shop is all he's got. Besides, maybe the war won't even happen. Ree asks why. The man explains that Niles and Hector are having a little chat right now. Just then, the door opens and members of Hector's gang walk out. The man with a scar on his face is Hector himself. Spotting the kid, he immediately wants to know why there's a child working there. He compliments the boy's hard work, saying, "That's how you survive in this world." He tosses a few coins into Ray's hand and tells him to buy something to get by. With that, he waves goodbye and moves on with his crew. But the bald guy nearly notices the wound on Ray's ear, which he quickly hides under his hood. Obviously, it's the same guy from the fight earlier, right? Can't let him figure it out. Since it's dark, the man struggles to recognize him, and Hector calls for him to hurry up, so they leave, but Ree is certain the man recognizes him. So, why didn't he say anything? Then the shopkeeper bolts inside and asks Niles what happened. Niles answers that the negotiations failed. War was coming. The man asks why, and Niles says he couldn't accept their offer of absorbing his organization. That was the worst possible choice. He only warns Ree not to leave his hideout in the meantime. And with that white hair and those huge pale eyes, how has no one recognized him? He knows that once the war breaks out, he won't have the freedom to move around. He needs to stockpile enough food before it starts. That's when Humphrey's car suddenly passes in front of him. He had never seen a car like that in Sector 50, which was suspicious as hell. He decides to investigate, following the men as they bow and greet someone. Hector steps out, opens a door, and welcomes the mage. Ray has no clue who this man is, but he carries an overwhelming amount of deep blue mana, the very same color he's seen in the golems when they move. But this guy, strangely, had several kinds of rings surrounding his mana vessel. And around those rings, there was another type of mana that seemed to be blocking the flow from escaping the center. Ray knew that man was dangerous, and he needed to tell Niles about it. Or was brewing. Supplies were piling up. Right then, and the protagonist shows up and calls for Niles, startling the man who wonders how this kid appeared out of nowhere. He tells Ray to disappear. His boss is preparing for war, and things are about to get dangerous. Ray just says to pass along a message. Be careful with the guy with a monal. He can't mention mana, of course. He doesn't want to expose his own talents, because that would put him in danger, too. Back under the bridge, the children are all asleep, and Pale shows up. Ray wants to know if they'll be staying there through the whole week of war. Pale says yes and asks who he thinks will win. Ray has no idea. To him, both groups are evenly matched, which is a problem since Niles is the one protecting the kids in this city. If Hector wins this war, instantly everyone here will be sold into slavery. At that moment, they hear something, and Pale says the war must have already started. Ray stands up, thinking something feels off, something's wrong. On 17th Street, the war is raging freely, but against the golem, nothing works. Worse, this time, the thing is gathering mana and firing off bazooka-like blasts of energy that pierce soldiers clean through. A poor soldier stares in horror, wondering what kind of hell this is, right before the golem tears his head off. Damn, brutal little golem. Completely insane. The man with the monal is there, sneering that these places stink. Then he boasts that this creation of his is magnificent and orders it to wipe everything out. Back with Pale, he wonders what those sounds are and tells Rei not to go, saying things feel strange this time. If Rei goes, they'll all go with him. But Rei insists, no, Pale should stay there. Then another child wakes up, asking what's happening. Pale gently strokes the boy's head and tells him to go back to sleep, that it'll all pass soon. He then tells Rei fine, he'll watch over the children since they can't be left alone. But Rei must not go too far, just come back once he finds out what's going on. And honestly, it feels like a wife sending her husband off to war. That husband, now standing in the middle of flames, watches as the city has been ripped apart. Soldiers lie riddled with bullets dead on the ground. He finds a red-haired man and asks what happened. The man stirs, telling Rei they brought a golem. Looks like the mono guy managed to control it, and despite having nothing left from the waist down, he's still talking. He tells Ryan not to throw himself into this war, that it's better for him to run away. Then he faints. Rei covers his mouth and mutters for him to stay quiet, because the protagonist will handle things. A lie. He only means Niles groomed is doomed, so he has to lend a hand. At the same time, back under the bridge, the children are all dead. My God, what just happened? Pale is holding one of them while the golem blasts a raising gem straight into his mouth. Why? The poor kid is about to be sent off to the afterlife, begging Rei not to return. And all of this just so our protagonist has the reason he needs to move up to the next street. And often now the boy is standing there seeing clearly that he came too late. Bodies everywhere, each missing pieces. I didn't think this story would be this violent. It's downright brutal. Then an explosion erupts behind Rei. He spins, rushing toward the spot, remembering that's where the tent was. And sure enough, he arrives just in time to see the kids hit by a man of bazooka. When the smoke clears, all that's left is rubble and blood. And that's it. Our boy is about to launch straight into the evolution arc, throwing himself at the golem, but he doesn't stand a chance. The golem notices him instantly, turns like the machine it is, and slams a boulder into his stomach, smashing the kid against the wall. Damn, you better run. This golem rips people apart. But Rei is whispering to himself that he has to make sure everyone's okay. And then come the flashes of memory. Everyone's smiling, calling him Big Brother, saying they like him, waving goodbye. Pale's expression changes, saying he never wanted Rei to come back. And yeah, of course, everyone's lying dead on the ground. Lohane and Ilo wake up. Now you tell them their names. Now that everyone's already down, the protagonist stands there, fists clenched, saying he still hasn't paid them back for everything they did for him. But then they hear a sound nearby, and another dark raising gun is being charged up. Rei is certain the golem is the one who killed them all. The children under the bridge, Niles' entire crew, and he swears he'll avenge them. Not sure how though, because that giant golem is right there charging a final attack that won't leave even his feet behind to tell the tale. Then out of nowhere, modernity wins. Someone rams a car straight into the golem, sending it flying. Niles steps out of the car, calls Rei's name, and runs to help him. Pretty clear he's about to die too, right? He asks about the children, and R.A. just says it's over. Miles looks to the side and sees the carnage. He apologizes, saying it's because he was too late, but the protagonist answers that it's not his fault. And then suddenly they hug like some tragic romance scene under the rain. Looks like the car really did kill the golem. Shut it down completely. Where's that beast now? The two of them hide out, and Rei asks about the subordinates. Niles answers that obviously they're all dead. Hector brought in a mage from another region. Rei wants to know what they're going to do. Niles says they'll head back to the street and look for other survivors. And right there, damn, I jinxed it myself. Asked about the golem. Said he was going to die. And of course, they end up in the same frame. Good job, me. But honestly, why were they standing around talking right next to the golem? Disaster. And sure enough, the bastard goes down with a smug grin, making Rei faint. Rei comes to asking what just happened. Turns out that raising blast caught him. He remembers every moment with Niles, and his heart starts glowing red. The boy unleashes that aura, and the golem swings again, while Rei swears he'll kill them all. Nobody's left in the story we knew. Just the protagonist telling himself that if this is a dream, he wants to wake up now. The golem stretches its hand once more, but now it's Rei's turn. He's forming that blazing fireball. The monster keeps charging its rays again, while Rei builds a red vortex. The two energies collide, exploding everywhere as the protagonist swears he's different from the golem. He's human with emotions. And then comes the massive blaze. What the hell? He disintegrates the beast. That's firepower. But here's the problem. He can only use his powers when he's emotional. He has to almost die just to get strong. He shouts, "I don't die." But the man's chest is a crater. Even so, he slaps Rei's hand away, telling the brat to stop irritating him. From the start, he knew he wouldn't die peacefully, though he didn't think it would be today. Even so, Niles had no regrets. Yet, achy for someone who started at the very bottom. The only uncertainty he carried was whether if he'd started earlier, he could have gone further. For him, Ray's age was the perfect time. In that moment, Ray reaches for the medicine in his pocket. But Niles grabs his arm and says he needs to get out of there first. He had to leave that place and go somewhere better. Since Niles had always seen him as a younger brother, go upstream, not stay trapped in those sectors. Niles was sure that if Ray did that, he could make it. And at that moment, he let go, handed the boy the keys, and died. The protagonist just stood there staring in disbelief. Hatred and despair, those were the first two emotions he had ever truly felt in his life. The next day, he's still under the bridge near where everyone died. He should have left already. This place is grim. He wakes up feeling the same pain as before, wondering if all of it might have been just a dream. But the moment he remembers what happened, his emotions twist and scatter inside him. Still, this time he feels something new, and he's sure of it. The stronger his rage, the stronger the fire magic he can summon. There's a direct connection between the intensity of his emotions and the strength of his magic. The problem is he went overboard. Now he's completely drained. He covers the bodies of everyone and vows to take revenge, whether in a noble way or a cruel one. Back on 17th Street, Niles' men are ordering everyone to move the corpses. The citizens knew now that since the enemy had won, life was about to get much harder, and Ray is already watching Hector preparing to kill someone. Maya concentrated in his hand when suddenly a hand clamps onto Ray's shoulder. He spins, slashing, nearly cutting Humphrey's neck. The bald man tells him to calm down, but Ray's running hot and lunges again, unleashing a flurry of cuts. Humphrey can't make sense of those lightning, fast movements. The boy is far stronger than before, and at this pace, Humphrey is losing. Ray drives a blade into his shoulder, but then Humphrey simply grabs him by the collar, slams him into the ground, and says he shouldn't be stupid enough to die over something as trivial as revenge because he has a proposal for the ghost of 17th Street. Ray lies still on the ground, silent. After a while, Humphrey says he's been watching the boy for some time and has something to ask him. Ray remembers Humphrey's reputation, a man known for silence, someone who finished every job perfectly without saying much. Seeing him now with this kind of expression makes Ree think he isn't trying to deceive him. Ree asks what it is. Humphrey says he also wants Ree to leave Sector 50. Ray asks why, and Humphrey explains he's searching for his brother, someone Hector sold to the City of Mages a long time ago. The deal was that if Humphrey worked for Hector for 10 years, Hector would give his brother back. But now he's starting to doubt Hector's honesty. He says the boy is about Ray's age. Ree asks why he should even accept this request. Humphrey immediately asks if Ree knows how to use magic. He's sure of it after that warehouse fight. It's an incredible talent Ray shouldn't waste because right now he can't defeat Hector. Hector always keeps a terrifying mage at his side. When Humphrey says this, Ray sees fear flare up in his emotions, and that's how he knows the man is telling the truth. Humphrey explains that anyone who pushes that mage's patience ends up frozen solid or drowned in a bubble of water. He's unbelievably cruel and at the same time unbelievably strong. Humphrey warns that the boy needs to disappear, survive, and only later think of revenge. The truth becomes clearer to Ray. The only magic he knows how to use is based on pure instinct, while the enemy he's up against is an expert you have no chance against. Humphrey tells him that by following the Elton River upstream, he'll eventually reach the City of Mages. It said only mages can enter. Then Humphrey hands him the money he'd saved through most of his life. Inside it, there's also a paper with his brother's name and description. Ray can't understand why Humphrey is handing him money and everything else if there's a chance he won't even keep the promise. But Humphrey says he's been watching the boy for a while and knows he never breaks his word. On top of that, he's certain Ray has enough skill to climb up into higher sectors. Suddenly, he grabs Ray by the shoulder and tells him he has to decide quickly before the other members see. The protagonist takes the money and says fine, but Humphrey has to take care of the bodies under the bridge. Humphrey answers that of course he will. And with that, Ray leaves, saying one day he'll be back. And sure enough, he runs like hell, exhausted, but lucky no one followed. That's when he sees Viola again. He tosses her a coin and says he has a question. He doesn't have much time, so it has to be quick. She asks what it is, and he asks if it's true that if you find a rainbow, you can make a wish. He remembers one of the kids who heard the story from her said that sometimes a rainbow appears with countless colors that actually reach the ground. If you find that spot, you can make a wish. The protagonist thinks it sounds strange, but the boy kept insisting he had to believe it was real because he heard it from Viola, who swore it wasn't a lie. The woman then says it's true they exist. But whether you can really make a wish or not, that's another matter. Ray notices that as always, there isn't a tremor in her mana. It's always purple, and he can't tell if she's lying or if it's something else entirely. Still, he grows curious because Humphrey had said that mage who showed up was also searching for a rainbow. With her saying this too, Raid is sure that wherever it can be found, it must be valuable. He then asks if finding a rainbow could bring back the dead. She shrugs it off but knows. They say any wish could come true. The problem is no one knows where to find one. It's as if they're infinitely far away. Protagonist, just a warning. Ivevacht full alchemist. You can't revive the dead. Don't go down that road. The boy thanks her and takes off running. Now he's at 23rd Street, Sector 50. The place Miles had marked on the paper is right there with a car parked out front. Just as he's about to get into the old man's car, someone shows up. It's that same guy from before demanding to know where Niles is and if Ray was ordered to take the car. Ray doesn't have time. He knows this area is crawling with Hector's men, so he grabs the handle and climbs into the car, but the guy sprints over and grabs the door. Ray struggles, drained from using too much mana earlier, but now he doesn't hesitate. He pulls the trigger. Bam! Right in the forehead. Damn, that was badass. He floors it and speeds off. Now he's leaving Sector 50, heading upstream, but he stops in what looks like a dump. He checks the trunk. Damn. Miles stocked a whole month's worth of supplies, but Ray says he won't reach the next sector for days. What? They're that far apart. Even at full speed, it'll take forever. First, he needs to find more information about magic in the next sector. At this point, what he knows is that there are two types of mana. Red mana, which can be used without preparation, and other types that require combining different colors to function together. Mana obviously isn't easy to manipulate, but he's able to focus on certain emotions and channel them more easily. He thinks of his dead friends to focus his rage, but the mana fizzles away. That's still his limit. 1 second of lost concentration, and everything collapses, so he decides to try combining the manas available in the air. He pulls in a large amount and tries to form a sphere, but it too unravels. The problem with mixing those things is that certain emotions and colors repel each other. So if one touches the other, everything collapses. He has to concentrate hard to make it work. On the other hand, there are combinations that always succeed. So he needs to study them gradually. Before, survival was the only priority. He needed food. But now things have changed. Now he has a reason to learn all of this. The next morning, he speeds up the car, stops to drink some water, and trains a little more with mana at night. He practices with a bit of cold mana, tries out a small flame, and even manages some stone formations. Already exhausted, he decides it's time to stop, wondering if there's a gentler way to draw mana without draining so much from his surroundings. It would be much easier if he could store mana inside himself and use it whenever he wanted, just like that guy with those strange rings around his mana core. Either way, he decides to focus on figuring that out once he reaches Sector 49. Meanwhile, back in Sector 50, everyone is rushing around searching for something. The Mono Man asks if they found it, but someone says unfortunately not. They've searched everywhere, but the golem vanished. When they insist they'll keep looking, he suddenly points something at the man's head. At first, I thought it was a gun, but no. He says, "Take my cane." The man touches it, and instantly his whole hand freezes along with the rest of him. Why the hell would you touch it? Should have just run and then shattered to pieces. That's it. Broken apart completely. At least try escaping. The villain still mutters that he's useless. And honestly, he's right. Then they find an area completely destroyed, and one of them brings what looks like a fragment of the golem. The Mono Man notices there's mana lingering in the air, meaning someone cast magic strong enough to leave behind that kind of trace. He follows the trail, sensing the mana pooling in a corner, and asks who used to live there. Someone explains it was the orphans and street kids. His surprise, saying they must have been hiding there to avoid the war, but he refuses to believe some random orphan could have used a spell like that. Suddenly, he starts ranting, wondering how anyone could comprehend one of the countless endless magical combinations that exist in the world. To him, it's impossible, so he concludes another mage must have come from a different region to destroy the golem. His men are ordered to find the intruder, while he himself will keep watch in case such a person really exists, because if an orphan managed to do this, he could become an archmage the world has never seen. Meanwhile, Rhea arrives in Sector 49. We see a flashback of a conversation with Niles, who once said that Sector 42 looked much the same. The big difference was that the streets were wider and the buildings taller. Beyond that, everything was similar. You've had to descend much further into the sectors before seeing a dramatic change. Now, Ray stands at the entrance of 49, realizing the place really is massive. Walking through, he sees kids scavenging trash and wonders where the golems are or if they only exist back in 50. He strolls through the city, hearing people talk about mining, cooking, and drinking. He notices he's on 36th Street, which seems to mean this place has twice as many streets. Right now, the important thing is to gather information about magic, especially about the mana vessel and those rings he saw. Of course, he also needs to learn about prison colors, and hardest of all, figure out how to get some money. He still has what Humphrey gave him, but he doesn't know how long this journey will last. And at that moment, he comes face to face with Veronica's bookstore. But Ree has no idea what a bookstore even is. In the past, we see that it was Niles who taught him how to speak and write, but only in the most basic, rough way. He knows enough to communicate, but bookstore is way beyond what the boy can grasp. He steps inside and realizes the place is full of squares with letters inside them. Then suddenly, a girl appears from an upstairs window, shouting that the bastard breaking things to steal books is back again. She tells him to get out right now and demands to know why he's robbing. Ree only understands that whatever is being stored here. It must be this thing called a book. While she keeps yelling, saying she won't repeat herself, he notices her aura shifting. Red for excitement, yellow for joy, then discomfort, irritation, and anger. He wonders how it's even possible for someone to feel all that at once. The girl warns him to move aside because the adults are coming down and they'll finish him off. He just replies that she's weird. That only makes her angrier, and she snaps that her grandfather will deal with him soon enough. Ray decides to ignore the crazy girl and keeps walking through the city. As usual, there are eyes on him. He notices those people are watching, carefully cautious. Obviously, he's a stranger in these streets and drawing attention, so he knows it's best not to provoke anyone. After all, this place isn't much different from Sector 50. Back at the card, he spent the whole day wandering through the city, but hasn't learned a single thing about magic. Tomorrow we'll have to search in other areas. Just then, he hears something strange. The guys nearby are preparing for something, and Ree already guesses what's about to happen. This time, there are 4 of them leaning against the car. The one in the blue hood asks if they should kill him. Another says no, or the kid will scream, while another insists they need the key. They decide it's time to act when suddenly something smashes through the window and slams one of them in the face. He falls on his back. Everyone's confused, and Ray jumps out of the car. When another tries to react, Ray drives a strike straight into his chest. One more drops to the ground. The last one tries to attack from behind, swinging, but what the hell? Ray calmly catches it with his hand and tosses it aside. Somehow, he's spinning the guy by the collar and beating him down. By the end of it, they're all sprawled out. Ray asks how many streets they control in this area. One of them hesitates, almost gets his ear torn off, then blurts that they control 3. Ray demands which ones. The man says 25 and 23, but Ray sees his nervousness, uncertainty, and fear, and knows he's lying. He stomps on the man's hand and orders him to tell the truth, or he'll get beaten too. Brutal blood splatters everywhere as he turns to the next guy, telling him it's his turn to answer. That one, clearly panicking, spills that they control 14 streets, with 52 members total. Their leader is someone named Kendrick, and their base is in the middle of an abandoned place. Ray tells him to lift his head, asks his name, and he answers Nisu. The boy then wants to know what orders their leader gave. Nesu explains the order was to beat Reen nearly to death, then steal his food and anything else he had, and that Kendrick himself would be watching. Right then, Kendrick leaps from atop the car, aiming to stab Ree. But Ree responds that he already knew someone was observing him. Owen spreads around him. The man doesn't understand, and Ray slams him twice in the face and chest. The guy crashes to the ground. Ray leans over and orders him to warn his leader that he's not the only one watching everything. Later, back on the streets, Ray realizes that just like in Sector 50, in 49, almost nobody knows anything about magic. He's also figured out that this thing called a book is just pages of paper with information written on them. And considering that's exactly what he needs most, maybe this bookstore really is worth it. It's right then that 3 guys show up in front of him and tell him to come with them. They're not there to fight, so he can relax. Ray just asks if they're friends of those kids from yesterday, and they say yes. He beat 3 of their members nearly to death, which is why the boss seems interested in him. Looks like the kid can really fight. One of them pulls out a sheet of paper and says there's a message, but none of the 3 can read, so they're stuck figuring out how to deliver it. Ray snatches it from their hand, and they're shocked that he can actually read. Street kids aren't supposed to know that. The note invites Ray to work for their boss, promising he'd never go hungry again. The trio asks what it says, but Ray just wants to know how the leader is chosen. They explain it's through fighting. Whoever's strongest becomes the leader. Right away, Ray tells them to take him there. Obviously, he wants to meet this leader, who's definitely getting a beating. They arrive at Kendrick's abandoned factory. One boy in front says just to go inside. They walk through some corridors until they reach the back where a fire burns and a bunch of kids are gathered. The one sitting in the chair stands, saying now he knows who this is. He introduces himself as Kendrick, adding that Ray doesn't look too bad in a fight, but he's still going to get beaten. No doubt. Or maybe not. Because for the first time, Ray sees something he's never seen before. Man is spilling out of trash. But never in his life has he seen such an absurd amount coming from a single item. Kendrick tells him to sit down, saying he didn't call them here to be an enemy. Still, there are plenty of kids standing around staring. The protagonist notices that for his age, Kendrick is surprisingly skilled at displaying his power. Kendrick asks where Ray came from. He's never seen him on this street, but hears he arrived by car. When Ray answers Sector 50, the whole place gasps. Apparently, no one has ever seen someone come out of that sector alive. Everyone mutters that it's way too far until the leader orders them to shut up. He then says if Ray is telling the truth, it's incredible he's qualified to be in this organization. Ray doesn't get what he means, so Kendrick explains they're planning to join a real organization. The plan is to become part of Merced, a well-known group from Sector 45. They have an agreement. Once Kendrick's gang reaches 66 members, they'll be allowed in. He asks if Ree isn't interested. This could be the perfect chance to raise his status. Ree replies that it's an interesting story and joining a group wouldn't be bad, but he refuses to work under anyone weaker than him. Kendrick doesn't like that and asks if Ray is implying that he's weaker. Ray shrugs it off, saying that in Sector 50, leaders were chosen by strength, not talk. Immediately, one of the gang members charges to hit Ree, but Kendrick grabs him by the neck and tells him to shut up. He doesn't like being interrupted. At that moment, Ray notices Kendrick seems to be using some kind of strengthening magic, but it's not his own power. It's the ring he's wearing that's radiating mana. Ray watches, unimpressed, as Kendrick beats the boy down. He figures he might actually be able to break that ring. Suddenly, Kendrick drops the kid on the floor and apologizes, saying he just got a little stressed. But Ree notices more than just the boost in strength. The ring also warped Kendrick's emotions. Ray steps forward, telling them to continue this nonsense about him being weaker. He flatly agrees Kendrick is weaker, and in an instant, something slices through the air, nearly hitting his head as Kendrick orders him to repeat that. He turns to his allies, asking what they think. Terrified, they stammer out that of course, he's stronger than this boy. What the protagonist notices is that the ring reacts to Kendrick's emotions. And more than that, it seems Kendrick himself has no idea what the ring is actually doing for him. Kendrick cracks his neck and says, fine. If the kid wants to see his strength, then so be it. Ray answers that yes, they should fight for the leader's position, and if he loses, he'll work under Kendrick. But Kendrick says the fight will happen in a week when everyone is watching. Ray points out that everyone's already here. Then Kendrick explains he wants the other gangs to be present, too, so everyone will know without a doubt who is stronger. Ray agrees, then asks where he got that ring. Kendrick just says he'll find out the day he loses. But unfortunately for him, that day isn't coming. The next morning, Ray is still wondering what that ring is all about when he suddenly feels something approaching and spins, grabbing a stone. One boy demands to know who gave him permission to walk around here. Others show up, saying he must have lost his mind. He shouldn't even dream of wandering through this place. They're about to say more when Ray cuts them off, telling them to shut up and fight already. And soon enough, they're all lying beaten on the ground. Just like in Sector 50, it doesn't matter where he goes. People love to pick fights, probably because they know he's going to fight Kendrick, but he notices Kendrick's own crew doesn't attack him. That rule doesn't apply to the other gangs, though, who don't want some outsider walking around freely. For Ray, it makes no difference. Everything's going according to plan. The more he uses his magic, the stronger it gets. These fights are giving him the experience he needs to cast faster and with less energy. Then, speaking into the empty air, he asks how long this person plans on just watching. That's when a boy in a beret steps out, commenting on Ray's gray hair and expressionless face, asking if he's the so-called hunter. Ray finds it odd. This kid looks weaker and smaller than everyone else. Yet, he walks around confidently. He assumes the boy came to fight and tells him to take off those glasses before they're covered in blood. But the kid tells him to calm down, saying he's not here to fight anyone. And really, how could he fight with such a scrawny body? Ree asks what he wants then. The boy hesitates for a second, then introduces himself as Philip, someone who has an offer for him. Everyone in the story always has an offer for the protagonist to obey. Apparently, Ree agrees because Philip starts leading him toward what looks like a dump. Along the way, he mentions that he's heard plenty of rumors about the boy. Everywhere he goes, people are talking about him. Turns out this name Hunter is a nickname he earned after beating up half the city. Ray thought people were mistaking him for someone else. When they arrive and Philip opens the door, Ray is stunned. The place is full of people. It's not a dump at all. This is Hotel Philip, and he's the owner. Damn, the kid's a businessman. Ray notes there must be about 100 people inside, but Philip corrects him. It's 186, including those who work outside. The protagonist realizes everyone there has something in common, and Philip asks how he noticed. Ray replies that all of them are people who wouldn't be accepted in other groups. Skinny weak, the kind who get crushed any fight. Philip praises his sharp eye, but explains further. Yes, they have some strong fighters, but those ones are busy in the mines. They also have quick people, but they're working with food. Basically, they take on all kinds of jobs. And to keep their group from being harassed, they pay fees to other gangs. Sometimes they need extra workers, and that's how everything runs smoothly. Meanwhile, Philip manages the hotel itself, providing shelter. Ray asks if it was really him who pulled all of this together. Just as Philip is about to explain, someone calls his name. A boy named Jonathan comes running in, saying that restaurant is working perfectly now. Nobody's bullying him anymore. He pays the month's rent, and Philip thanks him. Then Philip grabs a ledger and starts jotting something down while Ray sneaks a look. Philip snaps that everything has to be recorded right away. Seeing Ray's curiosity, he hands it over for him to check. Inside, Ray finds his own description. Hunter, the boy from Sector 50, along with an extremely well-drawn sketch. It's clearly marked in red, approached with caution. Philip is stunned that Ray can read. He thought the kid would just stare at the book without understanding a thing. Now he's apologizing for having tracked him so closely. Ray hands it back, saying it's fine. It doesn't bother him. A while later, they arrive at the door of a room, and the guard there looks confused, asking who this kid is. They can't just let anyone in. Philip explains this is the Hunter everyone's been talking about, and today he's their guest. Inside, Ray sees what looks like a luxury mansion. Damn, the kid's really collecting money. Ray himself isn't sure if Philip's good or bad. Ray says he heard rumors about this place, and thought it was all lies. Philip explains, the most important thing in business is people's trust. Money can always be earned again, but once you lose your credit on the streets, you can never get it back. Ray cuts in, telling him to get to the point. What's his proposal? Philip is trembling, thinking Ray's kind of intimidating, while he forces himself to push through his fear because if he wants to profit, he has to. He says again he has a genuine offer. He wants Ree to become his business partner. That's after Ray beats Kendrick and becomes the new leader. In other words, Philip has already assumed Ree will win. As always, Ree analyzes his aura and sees the boy is full of courage. He even asks if Philip doesn't think there's a chance he might lose. Philip admits, of course, it's possible, but he has a high chance of winning. Ray asks why, and Philip says it's just a hunch. Like Ray, he likes to observe people. After analyzing so many behaviors, he's developed a sharp sense for how things work. He notices the smallest details. For example, every time Ree talks to someone, he strangely looks toward the center of their chest. Philip can't figure out why. Maybe it's some trauma, or maybe Ree just doesn't like looking people in the eyes. Still, he drops the subject. Ree, stubborn as ever, wants to know what other habits Philip has noticed and how many. Philip agrees and explains. He's seen that every time Ray turns a corner, he steps first with his right foot, probably preparing to strike with his right fist as well. He's also studied the way Ray fights. Hearing all this, Ray is impressed. This boy figured out so much so quickly. Most people only see him on the surface, scary or cold, and usually that's all they think of him. But it makes sense. Anger and sadness are the only emotions he can feel, and even those he has to force himself to focus on. Maybe Philip, with his sharp observations, could actually help him understand emotions better. Philip goes on saying Kendrick has the bad habit of getting emotional during fights, while Ree seems to keep analyzing all the way through. That alone makes him different. Right then, Ree accepts the partnership. Philip starts to explain about the offer and payments, but Ree cuts him off, saying he'll be the one to decide that. Philip nods, fine, deal made. But then the protagonist adds a condition. Since Philip clearly has plenty of connections in this place, he needs him to find something for him. To be honest, Sector 49 isn't that great. Sure, it's all garbage heaps around, and yet this one kid is living the good life. 2 days later, our boy is back on the streets, sleeping under the car. At first, I thought it was him tinkering, but no, it's another kid helping him out, saying the car really does prove he came from Sector 50. The thing is busted, worn down. He also compliments Ree for already managing to become friends with Philip. They rarely send someone as skilled as him. Then he asks for some tools and a certain screw, and Ree uses his magic to fetch it. The boy notices how it kind of just dropped to the side, and wonders when Ree even brought that out. Ray doesn't answer, just stays quiet. After a while, the kid looks beat. Man, this world is only full of children. It's like Neverland. Kids fixing engines, running hotels. While I'm here old and washed up, they're doing nothing but making YouTube videos. Maybe I should get a real job. The boy goes on saying he rigged the part to cool the engine down and warns Ree not to tell anyone. But he used one of the most expensive ones. That's because it was Philip's request, and Philip's seen as everyone's savior. Without him, he'd never have gotten work. Ray notices at the very least this kid is popular. Then the boy pulls out a sheet of paper saying Philip told him to deliver it. The message was too complicated to memorize, so he put it in writing. He waved goodbye to Hunter and says they'll see each other again. We see that the information Ree asked Philip for was obviously about mages. Philip had said fine, he'd start right away. Ree wanted every detail, and Philip told him to remember who he was dealing with. Now looking at the page, Ree can't believe he gathered all this in just 2 days. The notes mention 2nd Street, a man called Wolf Bakers, 42 years old, seen carrying a heavy backpack with one hand. 8th Street at Kenny's shop, a man 23 years old. So basically, he's tracking down people who might be mages. At least that's what it looks like. Then Ray spots something we're checking. Out on the street, there's a cook carrying boxes while Ree watches carefully. He's searching for people who have those rings around their hearts. The first man is crossed off the list. The second, when a steel pipe was about to fall on him, suddenly a gust of wind knocked it aside. Strangely, the man didn't even flinch. So, everyone suspects he used wind magic or something similar. Ray thinks this one might be worth investigating. But when he reaches a shop, there are guys complaining it's closed. The one on the right says, of course it gets stoned every day. The other responds, they're supposed to keep throwing stones. That's the job. Their pay will double if the place gets put up for sale. Then one of them, holding another rock, says this time they'll smash the upstairs window and force whoever's inside to leave. Just as he's about to throw, the red-haired girl from before appears, ordering them to get lost. She says she heard everything, knows they're throwing stones on purpose, and tells them they'd better disappear. Ray notices she's brimming with courage and anger, but at the same time, there's a trace of black mana. She's afraid. The boys taunt her, saying they can tell she's scared. She insists the adults will come right before a rock nearly hits her in the face. One of them mocks her, saying they know perfectly well there's just one old guy there, not a whole crowd ready to deal with them, so she should shut up and leave. He hurls another rock aiming for her face, but Ree moves to step in, and then the redhead herself raises her hand and uses wind magic, making the rock drop to the ground. Ray has found the mage he was looking for. He slips back into hiding while the boys stand there confused, wondering what just happened. They convince themselves it was their imagination and prepare to throw another stone. Ray, of course, is certain that was magic. The guys jump to the other side, tell her to stop pretending, and throw 2 more rocks. This time, she's clearly out of energy to block them. So, it's the protagonist's turn. He does the same thing. Only the stones don't just fall to the ground. No, they bounce straight back into the faces of the idiots who threw them. At least he managed to send the magic, though it fizzled out at the end. Looked like it came through his hand. He looks at the girl and says it's been a while since they last saw each other. With that, the 2 bullies get beaten down and tossed into an alley. She thanks him for defending the place. He says it's no problem, but he's here to ask her something. She says the same, and then they both end up asking each other if what they used just now wasn't magic. Realizing they asked the same thing, she tells him to come inside so they can talk. Inside, she introduces herself as Veronica, and he says his name is Ree. She apologizes for yelling at him that first time she thought he was one of the kids throwing rocks. He tells her not to worry about it. All he wanted back then was to take a look at the library. That had been his only intention, but he never imagined he'd actually find a mage here. After sitting down, he asks where she learned magic and if it was her grandfather who taught her. She says, yes, of course, since he's a mage. Ree wants to meet the man, and she says, fine, he's upstairs. But first, they need to deal with the cut on Ray's face. He insists it's nothing serious, but she does the classic, puts her hand on his cheek, and uses a healing spell. She says it's taken care of, but Ree wants to know how she did it. He noticed she was channeling a strange white mana, moving it around. He's never seen anyone use that type of mana for healing. He spotted white mana many times before, but it's incredibly difficult to control. He's never managed it himself. Normally, it only shows up when someone sacrifices themselves for another or does something selfless and kind. But those feelings are too far out of reach for him. The girl just says it's nothing special. It's simply a healing spell. And what's this about white mana? Ray remembers Niles once told him he'd never heard of mana having colors. Normally, people just use magic without thinking about that. She repeats that she doesn't know what he's talking about, then asks if he means elemental generation. He asks her to explain. She says it's the process of combining multiple elements to create a spell. Healing magic, for example, is simple. You combine the regeneration element with 2 others if you want to make it stronger. Ree asks how many elements exist, and she says just the natural ones number over 20. If you add amplifiers, manipulators, and the rest, the total goes past 100. Finally, Ree feels like he's learned something useful since coming to this city. Now, he's eager to meet her grandfather and learn more. He asks if he can speak with him, and she says yes, but he can't even get out of bed. He's too sick. She tells Ray to wait while she was upstairs to see if he's awake and able to talk. While she's gone, Ree wanders through the library, glancing at the books. From what he's learned in the city, owning a book is extremely expensive. Touching them with his dirty hands would only lower their value. That's when he remembers the last time this kid even took a bath was when it poured rain ages ago, and he just stood outside in it. He doesn't care about his own stink, but maybe others do. Maybe the girl has a poor sense of smell, or maybe she just tolerated it out of politeness. He notices some other books, though they look more like records or newspapers. One of them is a study on elemental distribution across the sectors and the reason for the expansion of the black rain. Next chapter, when she's coming down the stairs, she runs into an empty room. She thinks she took too long, but then Ray shows up right behind her, startling the girl. She tells him to stop popping out of nowhere like that. He just says he wants to know more about magic. He looked through books and didn't find anything. She's impressed that he can read, as always, and keeps thinking he's more interesting than she expected. The protagonist asks how her grandfather is doing, and she replies that unfortunately he won't be able to talk right now because he's sleeping like a log. Blushing, she asks him to come back tomorrow, and he says that's fine. But as he's leaving, she wants to know why he's so set on talking to her grandfather. It seemed like that was his goal from the very beginning. He turns around and answers that he's searching for the prism, which is actually that rainbow the old lady mentioned, right? But he figures it's the same thing. Anyway, for 30 in the afternoon, and all I can think is that Niles is a liar. He told the protagonist that Sector 49 was all the same, but clearly everyone's living peacefully in some fancy place. Na is watching another person from Philip's list of names. A man in his 30s or 40s who leaves at 7 and comes back at 7 in the evening. He always shows up with a basket full of fruit, and no one knows where it comes from. Even if these don't seem like big leads, Ree needs to dig up as much information as possible about this journey. Turns out this kid is actually the one bringing him food. The moment Ree notices the name written on it, he says he never ordered any food. The boy insists it's on the house, and already knows he must be Hunter, someone kids look up to like a hero. Once Ray realizes the boy has already figured him out, he decides it's time to ask something. Juning, all excited, even offers to hand over the warehouse password, which confuses Ray a bit, but his real question is about how accurate this man's daily routine really is. Johnny explains that he's not the man Ray's looking for, the one with the basket is, and that the schedules written down are spot on. That guy is so precise with his time that people will practically use him like a clock. Suddenly, someone yells for Joan to get back to work, and the boy bolts off immediately. It was 6 o'clock in the evening, so just one more hour until the target appeared. Ray decides to eat and wait it out. But then his expression shifts when he glances to the side and spots the man with the hat arriving. Just like the mono guy, he also had strange rings circling around his man of flow. In his mind, Ray thanks Joni for the food and slips away. Heading toward where this man lives, he plans to take advantage of the time while the man's out to gather as much information as possible. Nervous, but with no way to back down, he feels an overwhelming surge of mana leaking out through the keyhole. He pushes the door open. Inside, though, it just looks like a regular home. He forces himself to stay focused. Now isn't the time to get distracted. The priority is collecting information about mages. In the trash, he finds a pile of crumpled papers. When he smooths one out, it's filled with scribbles and notes. One part mentions number 66, which he's been curious about. That instantly reminds him it's the same number of orphans Kendrick said someone was interested in. Ray starts thinking this man might be connected to that Merkard group the boy mentioned. But judging from the contents of the letter, this guy was actually kicked out of the organization. Then Ray feels something strange coming from a jar. When he opens it, he finds gems radiating mana. It's the same type of jewel in the ring Kendrick wears. It's mana from the air, but unlike natural mana, this kind gets drawn in much more smoothly. He wonders what would happen if he combined his own mana with something like this. At that moment, a flame bursts in his hand, the strongest he's ever created. Normally, it would take him more effort and more time, but this time it came so easily. Then footsteps echoed down the stairs. He quickly clenches his fist, hiding the flame, just as the man with the hat comes back in, grumbling that he can't believe he forgot his wallet, calling himself dumber every day. He mutters that this is why the organization abandoned him. Apparently, he talks to himself a lot, and then mentions to Walter not to worry. Once he finishes this job, he'll return to the group. As he climbs the stairs again, Ray thinks the man is leaving, but suddenly the man halts and says he feels like he needs something else from this place. He turns, staring straight at the protagonist, and says he needs rat poison. Ray draws his knife as the man remarks that he knew someone was hiding there. He goes in for slash, and damn, it looks like he actually landed it, because the guy had to fall back. He slammed his hand against the wall in frustration, demanding to know who Ree was, asking if he was that cursed assassin from the organization, and if they were underestimating him so much that they'd send Child. He had no idea how the kid even got the door open, but Ree just kept advancing on him. The protagonist's intention was clear. Defeat this man and force him to spill everything he knew since things had come to this point. But the guy blocked Ray's knife with his bare hand, telling him to stop thinking he could beat an adult with just a blade. Still, Ray pulled with all his strength, and the man was taken aback by how strong the boy was. He stepped back again and realized this man had used that same strange mana Kendrick had used. It must have been what kept his hand from getting sliced. The guy then powered up, saying he had been going easy because Ray was just a kid. Now, though, charged forward, warning that Ray's face was about to be ripped apart. Ree, however, was more curious. If that spell the man just used, maybe he could use it too. Suddenly, the man launched another attack and blood sprayed. To everyone's shock, Ray had copied the spell, but his version seemed more natural, more in tune with the world itself. He had memorized the exact combination of colors the stone produced and repeated it perfectly. The man kept striking, demanding to know how this kid had pulled off metallization, a technique he himself had invented. He swung with a horizontal slash, but Ray ducked under it, dodged cleanly, and countered with a cut. Now bleeding, the man's knee was torn up and disbelief filled his eyes. He was certain of it now. This boy had been sent by the boss himself. Ray pinned him by the hand against the wall and told him he had to disguise his voice so nobody would figure out who he really was. But the man scoffed. White hair, gray eyes. Everyone already knew his identity. Walter admitted he never imagined the infamous magic-stealing assassin would be so young. Rather was only thinking about how hard it was to drag information out of people like this. Maybe the best option was simply to kill him right there. But then Walter declared he had no choice left. He was going to burn his own life away if that's what it took to kill the boy and prove his worth to the leader. Out of nowhere, he was engulfed by a massive pillar of flames, his body consumed by fire. He shouted for Ray to tell the boss that the blood I will be paying a visit soon, assuming the kid survived this. At that moment, he promised the boss would regret ever abandoning someone like him. As he advanced, Ray noticed the mana rings circling his core were spinning at a dangerous speed. Mana was exploding through his veins, bursting from his blood vessels. It was getting lethal. The man raised his arms high, declaring that he knew Ray must be after the red bloodstone. But he wasn't going to let that happen, and he hurled a fireball straight at him. Ray brought both arms together, shaping a swirl of colors into a barrier, and somehow it held. The man was stunned that an assassin could summon a defensive spell of that caliber. Still, he kept hammering at it with more attacks, insisting that Ray's shield would break first. The problem for Ree was that he couldn't get close to someone whose entire body was engulfed in flames. He'd be burned alive. Suddenly, his eyes widened as the man raised his arm and summoned a colossal pillar of fire, daring Ray to block this one. Ree knew it was impossible to withstand that with just a barrier. But then the man noticed something odd. Droplets of water forming all around him. He demanded to know how Ray was using two primary elements at the same time. Ray surged forward with a punch, just as the man demanded an explanation for why an assassin was suddenly wielding water magic. At that moment, Ray unleashed a torrent, and the man's flames were snuffed out completely. The next instant, Ray staggered outside, exhausted, blood dripping from his nose. He had clearly pushed himself to his absolute limit. His mind was clouded, overwhelmed. But even then, he was left stunned at just how powerful that magic from those stones really was. The mana flowed calmly, everything blending together much faster. This thing was definitely powerful. He had no idea how strong it must be to have those rings around the circle. At this pace, it was more than clear he couldn't defeat that guy with a monal, the one covered in rings with glowing spheres. Still, with enough time, you would grow stronger and uncover everything he needed. He figured something bad could happen, and that's why he stole a few of those little stones when he was hiding behind the door. The next morning, he arrived at Veronica's library. She was all smiles, welcoming him in while he carried that aura around. She immediately asked where his coat was, and he told her he got rid of it. After all, if he kept walking around in the same clothes he wore when he was attacked, it would only make him look more suspicious. Veronica then said she had spoken with her grandfather about how the boy had used magic to help everyone. And on top of that, she mentioned he was searching for the prism. The protagonist, however, noticed a couple of children peeking at him from one of the rooms. The door shut, and Veronica explained they were her siblings taken in by her grandfather from an orphanage. Their names were Multa and Jolene. He asked if her grandfather had taken those kids in to teach them magic, and she grew a little flustered, wanting to know how he had figured that out already. He answered simply that there couldn't really be another reason. She added that she herself had learned magic from her grandfather. Somewhat awkwardly, she admitted she understood, and together they reached the door where her grandfather was waiting. She stepped inside first, introducing the boy as the one who had helped her. The old man was standing there, smoke swirling around him, and he told Veronica to leave the room for a moment. She did, and then the elder turned to Ree, saying he was deeply grateful. He had heard that Ri had helped Veronica deal with those children, something he himself should have done, but hadn't been in the best condition to manage. Ri replied that it hadn't been difficult, though his attention was fixed on the 4 mana rings the man carried. Beyond that, he could sense emotions: anger, comfort, excitement, shame, indifference, regret. Too many at once for him to believe. And yet, they didn't seem to be just drifting feelings. They looked like they were part of the man himself, not just a representation. Ri was still trying to process it all when the old man asked what exactly he was looking to discover. Ri answered that he had been searching for the mage. The elder mentioned that Veronica had told him Ri was a gifted boy. The protagonist said he had no idea if he was gifted or not. And then the old man asked if his name was Ri. He guessed Ri must be from somewhere outside this place. Ray stayed silent, and the man remarked that it must have been a long story. Then he proposed a deal. They would play a game, and the loser of each round would have to answer one question. Ray was caught off guard by the mana pulsing around them, and when the elder noticed his reaction, he said the boy's senses really were sharp. He asked if Ray could feel the mana flowing between them. Ray not only felt it, he could see it. The old man explained that each magic came from a different element, and their combinations created new ones. Between them right now was an element known as maintenance. It was something necessary to keep homeostasis stable without being shaken by outside forces. For clarity, homeostasis is the ability of an organism to keep its internal state balanced. Yes, I'm brilliant. I never needed Google to know that. Ray then asked about another element he noticed nearby, and the elder was surprised, not even sure if Ri could really sense both. Ray said yes, he was seeing it clearly. A shade of gray and another darker gray right next to it, different tones, which meant different elements. The old man burst into laughter like a madman, muttering to himself that he had never needed to go through hundreds of orphanages. Because here was a boy who appeared before him, able to instantly recognize the difference between maintenance and continuation. This is something most mages can achieve in their entire lifetime. But then the old man says fate is funny. He doesn't have much time left, and only now did he finally come across real talent. Ray wants to know the name of that other element, the one paired with maintenance. The old man laughs, saying it wouldn't be any fun if he just told him like that. Ray should win the game and find out for himself. He explains that it's simple. Right now, there's a sphere made of 2 elements between them. He wants Ray to try pulling that sphere toward himself. If Ray can draw it close, he wins. To make things easier, the old man even moves it a little closer to him. Ray thinks there must be some way to win, even though the old man is much stronger. He declares he's ready, and the elder signals the start. The moment Ray channels his mana, the little sphere shoots off in an instant and stops right in front of the old man. Ray is confused, realizing just how fast the old man really is. Then, the elder calmly announces that he'll be asking the first question. He wants to know where the boy learned magic. It's Ray's turn to radiate that fierce aura, and he answers that he learned by himself, surprising the old man for the second time that day. Judging from his expression, Ri wonders if self-taught mages are really that rare. But once again, the elder repeats that if Ri wants answers, he has to win the game. Ray says, fine, they'll just start the next round. At least he'll be learning magic directly from a Dumbledore-like teacher, right? This kid's about to level up, but judging from his dumbfounded look, you could tell he lost again. This time, the elder explains that the competition depends entirely on a person's ability to wield mana. The number of circles didn't matter. He's only thinking this to himself because he doesn't know that Ray is already aware of circles. The protagonist realizes that at this pace, he's giving away all his own information while gaining nothing. He's fallen right in the old man's trap. He needs a different approach. The elder extends this fear again, declaring it's time for the next round. Both of them unleash their mana, the air around them turning intense. Suddenly, Ray flings his hand to the side and activates something. The elder immediately notices the shift, saying the boy changed tactics. And this time, he actually wins. I don't know if he threw water or a gust of wind in the old man's face to make him blink, but Ri points out the elder never once said he wasn't allowed to distract him. So, the elder tells him to go ahead and ask. Ri wants to know, what exactly is mana? The old man chuffles at such a basic question and explains, mana is the most fundamental element of all things in the world. It's what they're made of. No one can see mana and no one can touch it. But just like how the thunder strikes or fire burns, people can observe its movement through secondary phenomena. And when you stop to think about it, he's right. You can't really touch fire. If you try, there's nothing solid there. Lightning is the same way. We're learning something here, folks. The old man continues saying, only a small portion of humans are born with the sensory ability to perceive mana. But feeling mana doesn't mean being able to use magic. That's because the talent to sense it and the talent to manipulate it are completely separate domains. Ray asks if by talent he's only referring to the ability to manipulate. The elder realizes that's a second question, but lets it slide, answering yes. Normally, talent means the ability to manipulate mana and combine it to create effects. Usually that's what determines how strong a mage will become. In a sense, studying mana is really just a person learning about themselves. And that's why there's a saying that the waves of humans are always honest with themselves. The protagonist grows thoughtful, but with that they move on to the next game. And this time it looks like our boy is actually managing to pull the sphere, and the old man is the one looking shocked. The element of maintenance was considered one of the hardest to manipulate. He was learning in real time and had already gotten the hang of it. So what's the next question? This time our boy aims straight and asks about those circles mages have surrounding their mana hearts. The old man explains that those circles can be thought of as vessels containing mana. The mana in the air begins to gather and integrate automatically into the mage's heart. However, the way it's distributed, how it's stored, and which element is stored all depend on the mage themselves. The protagonist asks if this refinement makes mana easier to use compared to the mana present in the air. The old man says yes, but there's a more important reason behind it. Using mana from the air once in a while was fine, but doing it constantly caused something known as mana poisoning. These reactions appear right after a mage keeps drawing on raw mana too much. If you use too much joy mana, you'll end up laughing like an idiot. If you use too much sadness mana, you'll start crying. If you use too much red mana, you'll be consumed with rage. The problem is, these symptoms keep building up until they turn into a permanent mental illness. Oh, that instantly reminds me of that old lady back in the town he came from. Could it be that she developed something like that with one of the elements? Ray, however, remembers Kendrick, the way his personality shifted in an instant. And Ray notices that maybe Kendrick had never been affected by mana poisoning simply because he didn't have any emotions at all. So Ray asks the old man, what if someone could use the mana in the air without being poisoned? Wouldn't that be a huge advantage? The elder replies that it's a unique thought, but he's never known anyone like that. If such a person existed, it would be incomparable to other mages since all the others are forced to refine air mana for safety. For that person, the amount of mana available would be infinite. The old man then asks if Ri has a dream. The protagonist checks if he means the kind you have when you sleep. But the elder shakes his head. He's talking about a goal in life, something he wants for the future. Ray says yes, he does have something he deeply desires. There's a certain person he has to kill, another he has to save, and on top of that, he still has this idea of resurrection in his head. Give it up already, you magical Kahlua. The elder says he's heard plenty of people talk about the first, but it's the first time he's hearing about the second. Then he makes an irresistible offer. He asks if Ray wants to learn from him. Ray can't wrap his head around why a four-circle mage would want to teach some orphan off the streets. He can't see the man's purpose. Could it be that he wants something from him? But before Ray can even voice the thought, the old man says he doesn't want anything. So the boy just says, all right, then that's that. We're good. At that, the old man smiles and tells Veronica to come in. She'd been lurking around out of curiosity. She tries to act all awkward, saying she definitely wasn't eavesdropping or anything. No way. The elder insists she come in and sit down, saying he knows exactly who she is. Then he asks why he brought her, Malta, and Joling together. She replies that it's to pass down his knowledge as a legacy. The old man nods and says that this is exactly the most important part. What they must pay attention to is the rainbow. Ray immediately sharpens his focus, and the elder says he's heard Ri has been looking for it. The rainbow, or the prism, is a story passed down for hundreds of generations. Thousands have sought it. Hundreds of theories exist about it, but they all converge on a single answer. Whoever finds the rainbow will become something close to a god. So yeah, basically the one piece of mages. Bronick then asks what a god even is. He explains that it's a being so powerful it can impose anything it wants onto this world. And now Ray finally understands why the man with the monol was also chasing after it. At that moment, Veronica says she wants to ask something when suddenly the window shatters and something comes flying straight her face. But relax. Our boy's already there flaring up that aura. The shards of glass are suspended midair, and Veronica wonders if this is wind magic. Ray, however, is thinking about how he already took down that guy, sliced his arm, and left him useless so he wouldn't try anything again. But apparently, this wasn't that guy. It was people from some other gang. He sees the kids running off, and the old man says that once again, Ray saved them. It should have been him doing that, but physically he was incapable. He then asks Veronica to take care of the boy, while Ray wonders if this is really right. For some reason, it felt strange seeing someone cry over such a small wound. Veronica had tears streaming down. Ray thinks to himself that he actually wishes he had a scar, something to honor enemies of the past. That would look way cooler. Then the old man tells Veronica to stop using magic before she's even created her circle. She says, fine, she'll just clean the room. And Ray comments that these people have been throwing stones for quite some time, judging by what she said. The old man replies, it's been over a month. It seems like someone ordered it. Apparently, there's a person making offers to buy this store. Ray asks if the old man doesn't want to sell, and he admits that was his original intention. But things are getting complicated. It was half a year ago when he opened this place. Back then his health was much better. What happened to you since then? This was the place he built with the intent of training disciples and finishing his research. Veronica, all smiles, handed him flowers, congratulating him for creating the shop. And those kids next to her, they just looked so ordinary. It made me feel like they're doomed to die soon, just like those children on the bridge. The old man says life here was perfect. He could study and teach the kids about magic and the future. The only detail was that it was Veronica managing the store because of the illness he already had. The problem was if he died, things would only get worse. There was no way he could leave the shop to Veronica along with a few children to care for. He says he'll have to sell the place. But Veronica shouts, no, he couldn't sell it. This was the place where his dream lived. He had wanted it since the very beginning of his life. The old man thanks her for caring, but says, not everything in life happens the way we want. She insists that it doesn't matter. She wasn't going to close the shop. She didn't want to see him fade away. The old man gets emotional, hugging her warmly, apologizing for making her life so difficult. A little later, that black rain is falling again while the old man has gone to bed. Veronica explains that his illness, the eternal sleep, started 2 months ago. Each time he sleeps, the duration stretches longer and longer until the day comes when he'll fall asleep and never wake again. Damn, that's terrifying. It already progressed to the point where he couldn't stay awake for more than 2 or 3 hours a day, meaning his whole day had been just this interaction with Ree. She then asks the boy to come back tomorrow, since usually her grandfather is awake in the morning. She hands him a rain cloak and says she'll see him then. Ray all this time hasn't said a word, but now he remembers the people on the bridge crying. Even if it was hard for him to understand others' feelings, he had gone through something similar himself. He turns back and tells her not to worry, that everything will work out. The girl's left speechless, and he leaves while she thanks him. Walking through the streets, though, he wonders where those guys ended up. He knows the library is on 8th Street, and the one running that territory is some gang leader named Jeffers. The place is empty, so maybe they retreated again because of the black rain. Rhea had been planning to deal with this guy soon, but now he'll need to adjust his plan. He runs, thinking it might be best to talk with Philip to arrange a meeting with Jeffers. But suddenly, right at the entrance, he comes face to face with 4 hooded figures. That was Kendrick's gang. So, what the hell were they doing there? The one on the right asked how long he was planning to keep this up, and the one on the left said the boss usually went on like this until morning. Right then the protagonist,